Good morning, everyone, and welcome to your morning briefing for Wednesday, the 5th of November, 2025. This is Robert standing in for Mike, and let's get started on the domestic sit rep. So yesterday, Democrat-controlled cities and some non-government organizations urged Federal District Judge John McConnell to compel the Trump administration to fully fund the SNAP program ahead of a hearing that's scheduled for tomorrow. President Trump did say yesterday the administration will only fully fund SNAP if Senate Democrats vote to reopen the federal government. And there has been apparently some movement on this now post yesterday's elections, where some Democrats are now saying that they're open to passing a continuing resolution as long as they can get a guarantee of a vote on a bill to extend those Obamacare subsidies. I think it's unlikely that this judge is going to go as far as forcing or attempting to force the Trump administration to take money from another program in order to fully fund SNAP, because right now, as we reported yesterday, those contingency funds will only cover about 2 or 3 weeks. And because I think this is going to run into some obvious separation of power issues, and if the district judge, in this case, Rhode Island's McConnell, did rule that way, I think that would be getting pretty close to an actual constitutional crisis where the Trump administration would explicitly ignore the court. Right now, we're in a situation where the court, I think, has recognized they can't do that. So they have said that at the government's discretion, they should try to find other funds to cover SNAP for the entire month of November. Moving over to the domestic side, the Kansas State House has dropped efforts for now to call a special session and pass a new mid-decade congressional map. According to some of those Kansas GOP officials, there was a supermajority in the Kansas State Senate who signed on to this effort to pass a new map, but some Kansas State House members, Republicans, rejected this effort to call a special session because they need a supermajority in both chambers to do this without the Kansas governor, who is currently a Democrat. State Senate President Ty Masterson did say they are going to make redistricting a top priority when they begin their next regular session in January. So I expect them to, during that regular session, try to pass a new mid-decade map to get at least one seat, to get their one Democrat seat flipped to Republican. Over at the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America's International Committee said they recently began a nationwide effort to connect Mexican elected officials from the Morena Party with Mexican communities here in the United States, Mexican citizens, especially if they're here illegally. And the DSA and Morena Party also held a political exchange in late September. And at this exchange, they discussed strategies that allowed the Morena Party to transition from a civil association to a political party. And they also had some discussions with Morena Party members in October when some of the DSA national leadership met with Morena officials at a migrants' rights conference in Mexico. I think this is part of a larger effort in multiple factions in the DSA to try to transition from an activist organization to a legitimate political party. And from what I can see over the last year, there has been a disagreement on how to go about that. Some factions within the DSA, like DSA New York, are still trying to push for getting some of their preferred candidates into local and state offices, as they did successfully last night with Zoran Mamdani in New York City. But some other factions, like in the Midwest, they want to transition to this cadre over candidates model, where when they get a candidate elected to a state or local office, they are basically able to have greater influence over that candidate by remaining on their staff. Because there are concerns within the DSA that when they have candidates that they've endorsed, or even candidates who have said that they are members of the DSA, like Zoran Mamdani, they're concerned that once they get into office, then they start to lose influence over them. Also yesterday, there were multiple bomb threats at New Jersey polling places, and this, according to Attorney General Matthew Platkin, authorities responded to email bomb threats at voting locations in 7 New Jersey counties. And these bomb threats did lead to the closure and relocation of multiple voting places. Authorities said the investigation is still ongoing. I did look at the 2024 map result, the 2024 election results by county. 4 of these 7 counties broke for Harris. 3 of them by a significant margin, more than 30 points. But 3 of the counties were broke very slimly for Trump. So it's not exactly clear what the motivation would be behind this, but the effect in some of these Trump counties could have disrupted some of the voting there, where we saw Mickey Sherrill take the New Jersey governorship yesterday by a pretty significant margin. And then today, the Revolutionary Communist Party USA's Washington, D.C. protest event is scheduled to begin. And this event is being organized under RevCom's Revolutionary Communist Party's Refuse Fascism organization. When they announced this event last month, they said they were planning to get millions of people into DC, which I think this is not going to be a single day event. I think they're planning this to basically be an occupation of Washington, D.C. until they're able to urge Trump to leave office, which I don't think is going to be successful. I also don't think they're going to get millions of people, but I am going to keep an eye on this to see what their turnout looks like. I don't expect a huge turnout because, one, this is beginning in the middle of the week, and 2, RevCom USA is led by an individual named Bob Avakian, and he's also not popular among some of the other far left organizations in the United States. They consider RevCom to be not an orthodox Marxist organization, and they also don't like what they call a cult of personality that is built up around Bob Avakian. All right, Jared, if you could take us through the global sit rep today.
Absolutely. We're going to start off in China and Taiwan. Taiwan reported that China has more than tripled its arrests of Taiwanese nationals that are operating in China. Down in Mexico, Mexican President Sheinbaum again refused the U.S.'s offer for military intervention against the cartels in Mexico. This obviously comes after the assassination that happened over the weekend. And Sheinbaum further called militarization a failed project, as happened with the war on drugs, quote unquote. And then lastly, Russia's deputy chairman of their Legislative Defense Committee said that Russia's already sending weapons to Venezuela as a follow-up to Venezuela's request for weapons, and that he sees no legal barrier for sending the Oreshnik intermediate range ballistic missiles. There's no published range for this particular missile, so here you can see on the map what actually qualifies as the ranges for an intermediate ballistic missile. So it has to reach at least Florida, but could potentially reach basically everything but the West Coast.
Yeah, have you seen anything on the status? Has Venezuela already received any of these IRBMs?
These particular missiles, no. There have been a few other missiles that this Legislative Defense Committee chairman did say, hey, yeah, we've already delivered those and we're going to deliver more. But they were anti-ship missiles, so not something they're going to use to attack the mainland United States.
Okay, and then
they did. There was a military expert that said that the production scale right now for this particular missile only matches what Russia needs, but they could easily scale it. It is already scalable. They have the capacity for it. They just have not done so in order to meet Venezuela's needs.
Okay, did they say that they're only going to be giving them the missiles, or are they also going to include warheads? Because as far as I know, Venezuela does not have a nuclear program.
So Venezuela, they did not say they would give nuclear warheads to Venezuela, but if you're selling a missile, you're going to include at least a conventional missile. I will be keeping much closer tabs on this because Russia appears to be wanting to send at least the delivery vehicle to Venezuela.
All right. Thank you for that, Jared. Let's move on, where we are tracking 78 protests today. And then we're going to move over to the high side, where we are going to talk about the election that occurred yesterday, specifically in California and Virginia. Then we are also going to cover a bill that was passed by the Illinois State Legislature. They're calling it the Bivens Act. This is named after a federal precedent called Bivens, where that allowed individual or U.S. citizens to sue individual federal agents for civil rights and constitutional violations. And also, the Customs and Border Protection is giving local police access to a face scanner app. And if you want to join us on the high side, get access to these items and our analysis and our questions and answer session, you can go to forwardobserver.com/trial, get a 7-day free trial, and check us out. All right, Jared, please take us to the high side.